Hi, I'm Anthony Dicero, and I love this life.
So how does a California kid wind up in the middle of Indiana?
Drag racing. Actually, racing. Because in California, the tracks are closing. It's such a far drive. Everybody's in Indiana. And man, this is it. To be honest, Indiana is what California was 25 years ago. I actually just talked my family into moving here. My sister's having a house built 10 minutes from here. I can't wait. My dad's moving here. It's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, I think they caved after about 10 years of me complaining about how stupid they were and how smart I was. I hope I was right, because boy, they're coming now. No turning back. I mainly grew up in Sacramento, but my junior high and high school years I lived in Vacaville. Sacramento Raceway was my home track. That's what made me who I am. My dad was the racer, so he wasn't going to spend money on a junior dragster. I mean, he had crew guy in me. If I went and got a junior dragster to drive, then he lost his crew guy and he had to spend money. So plus I really liked racing with my dad, and we raced. We have the family had a blown alcohol altered that we raced nostalgia racing and bracket racing with, and he still races it to this day. So no, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have this mess.
Well, it's hardly a mess. So when did you come to Indiana?
Well, so it's kind of weird. I worked for a guy named Bill Evans out of Florida, and he was friends with Tony and Robin Sampson in Marion, Indiana. And because the car was based in Miami, Florida, we kept it in Marion, and I lived there in the toter home for about a year and a half in between races. And I thought, man, this place is awesome. And man, how did I end up here? That's crazy. So Bill Evans was going to quit racing, and I went to work for a guy in Sacramento, California, a guy that was going to start his race team. And we were there for about 4 months, 5 months, and he realized that was the dumbest thing ever, because you can't have a race team in California when everything's based in the Midwest. So we moved here. I think that was 2009, and I've never left.
So you were married at the time and you moved out here?
No.
No.
No. Nope. So I worked for Morgan Lucas Racing in 2006, and my better half, Jessica, she worked there, and she basically told me I wasn't dateable, I think. I would have a better chance at dating her mom, and her mom's married, and I think I think that was like, you don't have a chance. So like 2 years went by, and I ran into her at a race, and I was like, now? She's like, no, not now. Damn. All right. So somewhere in the middle of 2008, she caved in, and we've been dating ever since. I like to call her my wife. We are engaged, but I'm lame and can't commit to a date because there's races and they get in the way.
Well, there's no races now. You could fix this problem right now.
Mike Booker keeps trying to fix this problem for me too. She gets a better tax break this way. That's what I tell her. It's not working very well. My daughter's been on me about it too. So we're going to have us a wedding soon. I think my family's moving here. We can convince her family to take a trip out here. We'll have a wedding soon.
But just to be clear, no date is on you, not her, right?
No date is on me. We went to Switzerland and raced. We took our car over there for Erzurbacher's daughter to race, and I proposed to her at the highest place in the world, the tallest mountain. So a wedding date is going to have to top that, and I haven't figured that out yet. So at least that's my excuse.
That wasn't very well thought out. I'm just telling you.
Hey man, it's working right now. She loves me. I think it has a lot to do with our daughter, but hey, it's working out.
It sounds like you've been around fuel cars your entire crewing career.
Yeah. So growing up, my dad raced. My dad had an alcohol funny car when I was young. My dad got rid of his alcohol funny car ride and lost his ride, and basically got our family altered out that we ran in Comp Eliminator, turned it into a nostalgia car. We didn't race as much as I wanted to, and my dad and I started not getting along, and so I knew more than him. Imagine that. So I met this guy through a job at a speed shop in Northern California named Mike Andriotti, and Gary Selzy was driving his alcohol funny car. And I went to work for Mike Andriotti, and a guy named Don Hudson was getting his license, who is another alcohol racer from the West Coast. And I worked on that thing for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. I met Dave Uhara. Through Dave Uhara, I met Brad Anderson. And in 1997, I went to work on Randy Anderson's Nitro funny car. And I haven't been back. And you know, it's, the coolest part about it is now I hang out with Shelly and Jay and run into Andre, who worked on Shelly's car. And they have, Jay's and Shelly got a daughter and son that are as old as I was when I met them. So it's kind of neat, and we're all doing the same thing. We're just a little different, older. But.
So at what point did crewing on cars turn into car ownership?
So it's kind of a unique story. Everybody's got their own unique story in life, and mine is, you never know who's going to help you, and you never know what break is going to be there. So try to utilize all the help you can. Try to optimize every break you can get. And I worked on a bunch of teams, and one of the things I learned was working on teams was hard to stay there because you didn't know if you're going to have a sponsor next year or how good it was going to be, where the team was going to live. It wasn't as good as the crew guys have it now, where they're more centrally located. I mean, there was teams in South Carolina, North Carolina, Indy, Michigan, California. They're all over. So you never knew where you're going to live. And so it was tough that way. And I went to work for Morgan Lucas in between a fuel team to work on his A fuel car. And I met Tom Conway. And he pretty much, he kind of changed my life in a way. Let's see. He didn't know me. He basically entrusted me with his combination and sent me on my way helping Morgan Lucas. And we won some races. He came and tuned the car. He tuned by telephone. I learned a lot with that guy. I later that next season went to live with him, worked on his stuff. Shawn Lang drove the car a couple times. We went through a bunch of different drivers, him teaching them. And one of the things I learned from him was I didn't think I was going to work on a team again. I was going to try and own my own stuff because everybody wanted to learn how to drive one. Everybody wanted to learn how to work on one. Nobody had a really good end to getting on a pro team or anything like that. And I had a lot of connections. So I called a guy that had me run his car before, and he wasn't racing, and he said he wanted to sell everything. I made a deal with him to sell the stuff for him. When I went and inventoried, I thought, man, I could build a team out of this. So I called a guy named Shane Lawson and talked to him about renting a ride from me. And he said his dad had some sponsors lined up and that they would be interested in doing 4 or 5 races. And I was like, okay. So I drove to New York, Gene Aragoni, inventoried all his stuff to sell. On the way home, sold enough of it to pay him for what he wanted and keep enough to kind of get my feet underneath me. Another guy helped out at the time, Ron Griffiths, had a car and a trailer. And we kind of just compiled all our stuff together. And his daughter raced the IHRA stuff. And Shane and I went to, 4 races with Smart Chicken as a sponsor. And the dream was started. I mean, man, Jess was 8 months pregnant, riding in the back of the toter home, bouncing across the interstate, trying to go to a race. I had no idea what I was thinking. I had no idea why I thought I could make a living that way, but I saw other people doing it, and I saw the opportunity out there, and I thought, man, if you work hard, anything's possible. I mean, if you want it, you just got to go earn it, or you got to go try. And if there wasn't for guys like Tom Conway, Tony and Robin Samsel, Ron Griffiths, I'm sure I'm forgetting Gene Aragoni. If it wasn't for Gene Aragoni, none of this would have been possible. That guy, salt of the earth, good dude, took care of me, covered, hey, I'm not worried about it. Go sell what you can sell, use what you can use, get your feet off the ground. And And of course, with not having crew guys for pro teams, the idea of Nitro University came along. Doug Foley and his son, when they had their pure speed school, they were generous enough to donate track time to me so I could have my school at their places. Doug Foley Jr. is the one that came up with Nitro University as the name. Like I said, if there wasn't these people out there to help you, I mean, it takes somebody, I mean, it takes your own drive to start your own deal or to do something out of the norm, but you have to have help from the village. And then it's a crazy way we got there, but.
So really the genesis of this was your work with Tom Conway and him mentoring other drivers.
Yeah.
Put you in that position to do so.
Yeah. I mean, and I grew up watching Jerry Darian do it too. I mean, those guys were inspiring in the sense that, man, who's going to be the next generation to inspire drag racers? How are you going to go find a new drag racer? You know what I mean? There's only so many kids do what their parents do. Some kids don't want to do what their parents do. I mean, think about it. If your dad's a professional drag racer, you might not want to be one. Well, who's going to help populate the next? And when I was a crew guy working on pro teams, I'd be standing behind I'd be at the back of the pit area working, and somebody standing behind the ropes go, "Hey man, how'd you get on this team?" Well, the answer was always you had to know somebody. Well, not everybody's going to know somebody. So I thought, man, we could start a program. And the amount of drivers that went through Nitro University, I mean, I think we did 34 drivers in 6 years.
So take a minute and tell me about some of those drivers. I mean, we see Krista Baldwin's name on the car.
Yeah, so Richie Crampton got his license through us, Krista Baldwin, Urs Erbacher's daughter, India, Alex Laughlin, Mike Booker,
Did Austin Prock go through?
Austin Prock, Jordan Vandergriff, Matt Sackman. Man, I mean, there's I don't think I forgot them all. They all have their most individual story. I mean, some of the greatest stories. Rich McPhillips Jr. got his license with me. Some of each person had I mean, Krista's defining moment was she totally blew the first run. And it was so funny because she was more mad than me. I'm laughing because everybody's going to mess up the first time, and she's so mad at herself that she didn't say a word, and we're driving down the return road. And she's standing up in the car, her hair's blowing in the back, and I thought to myself, looks like my daughter back there. And she looks so mad, and yet she doesn't realize how tough she is, that she just did something that some guys are afraid of doing. Hell, I ain't drove this thing before, and I don't have any intentions of driving it unless you can drive it drunk, because you have to get me drunk to want to drive it. But, it was just crazy. I mean, Rookie of the Year, Top Fuel, Bill Litton. That guy made without him and the being a Nitro University, as far as renting from us, teaching me good business ethics, if it wasn't for him, I would have drove this thing in the ground for sure. And the funniest thing is there's probably one guy out there that has no idea that he helped. Randy Meyer. That guy, he sets the bar so high that you're like, I gotta run as good as him. Maybe not better, but at least as good. And the guy's been out there for a long time. He's got great equipment. He could run down a dirt road, and he sets the bar this high all the time. So if it wasn't for guys like him and Rich McPhillips, that car rips now. Those guys set the bar so high. When you're trying to rent your car out and then tell somebody, hey, we can try and run as good as them, man, but they make you work hard. They make you show up with your stuff looking nice. They make you want to make your stuff run good so that you could compete on their level. So
how did you learn what you know? It all started with Tom. Tom Conway?
My dad taught me about racing and race engines, and Tom Conway taught me about how not to overthink it. And I got, as things got going and whatnot, you meet other racers, and guys like Jimmy Prock and Frank Manzo, I'd like to call them my friends. Maybe they just talk to me because I bother them, you know what I mean? But when Austin got his license, Jimmy really took a liking to the car, and he looked over the program. And he introduced me to people that he dealt with in the industry. And Frank Manzo, I talked to him earlier today, he calls just to check, and he's like my Midwestern dad. When he moved from New York to here, or New Jersey to here, I was like, latched on like a new son. And the those kind of guys, they think racing when you're thinking about sleeping or eating or a pie or something. They're thinking about racing, and they call you and tell you, hey, you're not thinking about racing? Why not? So living around them, you know, they bring the best out in you. So that's the other thing about having a race team here in Brownsburg or near Brownsburg, Indiana. Utilizing the resources around here. I wouldn't have the equipment I have if it wasn't for guys at Don Schumacher Racing, Mike Green when he was there, Tommy Johnson Jr., those guys when they were running there, and even now to this day, Alex Conway, those guys, Dave Fletcher, when they got something that I'm looking for, they keep their eye out on it for me or whatever, let me know. I'm able to buy secondhand parts from them. John Force Racing, I mean, Sam over there, those guys, if it wasn't for everybody helping, this wouldn't be possible, you know? And so I try to remember that when Austin's getting his license, or Jordan Vandergriff, you know, when Jordan drove the car, Ron Douglas worked on it. He helped, he built the fuel pumps, he helped with tune-up advice. So I learned from everybody because I'm not afraid to ask for help, because you never know what you're gonna learn.
Well, part of your training program through Nitro University was not only to train drivers, but to train crew people as well.
Yep. Right now we have, I think, 4 crew guys that have gone through our course that actually still have full-time jobs on the NHRA tour. But we offer a couple different courses. We've had people come from Australia to take the course, and we keep in contact with them. You know, some people come back 2 or 3 times. We have a guy, Jeff Miller. He tries to come a couple times a year. I think he likes it more than we like it, you know. And my daughter, she likes to bring new students in too. So we teach them anything from, and their options of what they want to do are endless. You want to come in and be the bottom end guy? We'll teach you how to do the bottom end. You want to come in and be the clutch guy? You'll take the clutch out, you'll grind disc, you'll put it in, you'll set it. And I think the coolest thing about the Nitro University deal is when you see somebody drive it and they get out at the top end and they're just all like, that's nothing. Wait till you see a crew guy put a clutch in that's just sat on the couch watching TV and said, I want to go, shows up one day, puts the clutch in at the US Nationals, goes up, runs 5:28, his clutch. I mean, the guy's like, I did that. It was awesome. You know, you can't bottle that up and give it away.
It's not so much about winning, but is the learning opportunity.
Yeah, because who's going to teach the next generation? Who's going to help bring some fans in? I might not be able to change the world in some ways, but maybe I could help a couple guys come to the races, because, man, I put everything I ever wanted to do into this my whole life. There's got to be somebody as dumb as me wanting to do it. They have to have a way in, you know what I mean? And, man, the amount of people the amount of crew guys, the amount of people I've met, the relationships, the trips I've gotten, there has to be a reason you want to go drag racing. Whether it's you like drag racing or you like the people you meet, somebody's got to show it off, and I try to show it off. We still have Nitro University, thanks to Krista and we're working together. We purchased a company called Composite Specialties, formerly known as JBR. We make carbon fiber injectors for all types of blown alcohol, race cars, whether you're tractor pulling, drag racing, street racing, or street outlaw racing. Heck, we just did one for Dean Carnes on Stinky Pinky. And so we make scoops, we do carbon fiber shock covers for the junior sprint car. We do belly pans. We do the five motor pull-in tractors. We do carbon fiber fenders for them. We build a lot of stuff for Murph McKinney and Johnny Lindbergh. We stay pretty busy doing all kinds of things, and because we still have a race team, we still have Nitro University. We don't do as much schools as we used to, because Krista has been driving the car a lot more, and she wants to race more, and with the carbon business, so we do a lot more crew guy stuff now. We still are available for the licensing and stuff, but unfortunately right now, 34 people in 6 years was pretty strong. The last few years, people are just haven't been licensing. They've just been trying to make more races or make more laps to keep their license current. So, and what's funny about it is we never advertised really, other than like some social media stuff. It was always word of mouth, or somebody that contacted us on Facebook or social media wanting to try it out. And I feel like if we ever put some effort into marketing it, we'd probably find more customers or more friends or clients. However, we're spread super thin and trying to do this, and it's kind of some of the renters that we do have. It's hard because you tell them, hey, we're giving our best, but you can't give your 150% to the race car if we're putting 50% into the marketing or trying to run the school. So right now we have about 4 or 5 drivers that really just want to go racing right now. So it's hard to appeal to people wanting a license when we want to win some races too. So
your training program is now extended to your daughter.
Yeah. We have ironically, she tried junior drag racing. She likes it, but not nearly as much as she likes junior sprint car racing. We race on the dirt. We just started that. It's funny. I have a school, right? I tell people they come, they got to get their license. They're not ready to go racing. Just because you got a license doesn't mean you can go racing. You should make some test runs. You should get acclimated, because let me tell you, when that thing fires up and there's somebody like Robin Samsel or Rich McPhillips and Megan Meyer in the other lane, your heart's beating out of your chest. You're not thinking. You're not going to do a good job. Even if you try your hardest, you're probably not going to do the best job you could do because it's your first time. So you got to get some seat time. You kind of got to get used to it. Well, like the ever stage dad that I am, we bought a junior sprint car and loaded up and drove straight to Oklahoma to the biggest race there was. Never been on dirt before, nothing, and said, good luck, honey. And ironically, she drew a number where she started up front in her heat race. And I told her, sweetheart, you better get on the gas when the green flag drops or they're going to run you over. And she did okay. I think she finished somewhere in 13th in her race out there. And but we had a lot of fun, and we're going to probably venture into some dirt racing. We're going to probably venture into some junior drag racer school. But, and when she did her junior drag racing thing, Antron Brown helped her. And that's one of the things about our Nitro University program. When you come to be a driver, I don't teach you how to drive because I know how to work on them. We get you whichever NHRA pro driver you want. Leah, Antron, Tony Schumacher, Austin Prock, they'll come. Jordan Vandergriff, they'll come and they teach you. So it's not me. You learn from a pro. So it's funny you said, is anything off limits? And I said no. And then when I started to answer, I thought, man, I'm going to open myself up if I answer this 100%, because I'm not ready to tell the whole 100%. But this is a good start, because I believe it or not, I get emotional about some of this stuff, because I realize I never talk about it. And then when you ask about it, I realize, holy shit, wow. Without some of these people in my life that I don't even talk to anymore.
That's part of what I'm trying to get.
I know, but I don't want to see myself cry yet. There's been 4 or 5 times me and Tom Conway, I used to live with Tom, and it's hard to even have a conversation with Tom anymore because we had such hard feelings. We get along fine now, but we had hard feelings for a while between us, and he had hard feelings when I didn't, and I had hard feelings when he didn't, and it was like, man. And so some of this stuff is like, wow, I forget about that. I should call him and tell him, hey man, I hope you're okay, just because. That Gene Aragoni guy, if it wasn't for him, and I feel like I took advantage of him, and I told him that later on, because he got his whole truck and trailer and everything rear-ended on the way to a race, and the insurance company wouldn't work with us, wouldn't cover it, and he lost it all. And in the middle of that, he got a divorce. And then after it was all said and done and he couldn't do nothing, I called him up and I felt like I was picking his pocket. I'm like, why don't we sell all that stuff and try and recoup you some money? And then in the end, if it wasn't for him agreeing to do that, none of this would have started. And it's like, wow, man, that's crazy. I take that for granted sometimes when I'm driving down the driveway. Yeah, Robin Samsel, it's just crazy. Robin Samsel, that guy right there, salt of the earth, man. If I had a dad I didn't know, Robin Samsel was the dad I didn't know. It was my dad, because that guy should have never covered for me. He did things no one would have done.
So you were living in his toter home?
No, I was living in Bill Evans' toter home, and I worked for him. And Bill Evans is so crazy. His wife bought him a toter home and trailer for Easter or for his birthday or something, right? And he said, okay, I want to go racing. Would you come tune my car? And so I flew to Valdosta, Georgia, and we won the race. And he was like, we should do this every weekend. And I was like, okay. And he goes, no, serious. We should do this every weekend. I can afford to. I got this job. I just bid this contract. I'm building all these gas stations in Florida. How much do you think we'd take to go running? And I said, I don't know, 200. I shot him high. I was like, $250,000, $300,000. You could go, no problem. What? Next thing you know, I'm packing all my stuff. I moved out of Tom's, went to live with Bill. I was in my mid-20s, living in a toter home. And he's like, why don't you just stay up in Indiana? Because it's way easier for me to go to these races there. All I got to do is hop on a plane and meet you there. You're already there. And so we did. And then through that relationship with Robin, when I started my own thing, I didn't have a truck and trailer. And man, I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with my cousin and my girlfriend. Who was going to give me a loan? Robin gave me a loan for $105,000. He put the truck and trailer in his name and was like, make a payment to me every month. See you later. Man, there was months I told him, I'm going to pay you twice the amount every month. Don't worry. There was months I'd have to go to him and go, I'm going to be about a week late. He should have beat my ass and took it back. And he just, you'll be all right. Keep trucking along. When their truck and trailer was breaking down and I'm motoring down, oh man, what a scumbag I felt like. And I'd call Rob and he'd be like, nope, just keep going. Okay. I broke down one time. They stopped on the side of the road, loaded all my stuff in their trailer, took me to the race. So like I said, sometimes you just don't realize how good you got it until you're like sitting at home with the coronavirus taking over the world and you can't go racing and you go, holy crap, those guys were bad dudes, man.
Well, it sounds like they had as much or more faith in you than you did in yourself.
I don't know. Robin and Tony, they were cool. They let me help them build them a new car, and we built them a new car, and then they started renting out their car, and I helped them find customers. And man, there were so many times that I had a customer and I stunk. I could not get the thing to run, and I went over to Tony and I was like, what do I do? I don't even know what I'm doing wrong anymore. I feel like I'm standing in the fire. And he'd come over and we'd turn them all back and he'd go, pfft. And they'd go, good job, Anthony Dicero. And I'd be like, if I only knew it was Tony Sampson. And I don't know. It was just those guys like that. Richie McPhillips saved my butt one time on the starting line. One of the crew guys left a fitting off the back of the head, and nobody has a Dash 6 fitting because A fuel cars are Dash 8 and bigger, you know. And Richie's like, I got one. The other guy was already running on alcohol. Richie ran to the back of the lanes, you know, because they're fast, they run last. I was first because I sucked. He ran all the way back up there and put that thing on, and we made the run. And what he doesn't realize is if we didn't make that run, I'd had to give that guy back his money for that run. Because in the beginning, my contract was I got paid if we ran. If we didn't run, we didn't get paid. So many a times there's little things people did that is like, whew. Doc Powell, when I first got my deal, I didn't have a motorhome I felt comfortable driving. I just got in the motorhome from Tony and Robin. I bought a motorhome, didn't realize it was stick. Never drove a splitter semi truck, had no idea how to drive it. So Doc Powell, Jerry Powell loaned me his, and I drove it to California and was gone a month. Who loans their, I made the payment on it, but big deal. Who loans their stuff out for a month? $350,000 motorhome. So there's been some great people along the way and my dad, if he wouldn't have started all this, but it takes, like I said in the beginning, it takes a village. So many people along the way have been like, hey, I got you. I'll help you out. It's like, okay, we're rolling again. Many a times I walk down the driveway going, oh, no check in the mailbox. I walk in the house and I go, we're in trouble, aren't we? And she'd go, yeah. And then the next day I'd open the mailbox and there'd be 2 checks. Like, huh. Or the next day the phone would ring and go, could you do Norwalk in Chicago? Yes. Ah, thank you. So somebody's always looking out.
So for a while, this was your source of income.
6 years.
6
My
years.
source of income. They say if you could make it 5 years, it's a business. I made it 6 and quit. No, I made it 6 and we're still hanging in there. I mean, so many people along the way. I look at the car and I think, oh man, if it wasn't for Bonifant in the beginning and Jeff Bohr, Paul Lee, you know, just the most randomest. Like, I've known Paul for a long time. I knew Paul through Krista, but I knew Paul through Bonifant, and he helped out. And I knew Rob and Nikki from when I worked for Bob Gilbertson, and Nikki was the crew chief. And it wasn't, man, they helped me out so many times. My bell housing was out of date. I didn't have another one. It was a piece of crap anyway. The rear end had broke, and it bent the face of the bell housing. And a Thai bell housing showed up with a note. This is how you're going to pay. This is when you're going to pay. Keep going racing. I mean, Spencer Massey, that guy, I got the greatest story about Spencer helping me out. So Spencer and I, best buds from Racing A Fuel. When he got his deal at Snake's, I took him to meet Snake. Like, somehow I knew Snake from working on the funny car, and Snake says, hey, you know that Spencer kid? Can you bring him over? I'd like to meet him. So I went and got him and introduced him, and later that day they made a deal that he was gonna be on the driver development. But Spencer never forgot where he came from. So he was staying in his motorhome behind Schumacher's. And one night me and Colette were driving home from getting dinner, and we drove by and saw him. And so he said, hey, how's it going? And I told him, truthfully, bud, I'm about at my end. We hurt the car. I had to get a new car. DSR made me a smoking deal on it. However, my wing didn't fit. My rear end didn't fit. I'm having to buy stuff I wasn't planning on. All the money I got for going to Vegas and Pomona, I've already damn near spent it. I don't even know how I'm gonna afford to get there. And he's like, well, if things don't clear up, let me know. I'll be around tomorrow, come talk to me. Okay, he's like, well, what's keeping you from going? I go, man, if I go, I don't even have enough fuel money. If something happens along the way, I'm toast. So the next day in the afternoon, I got enough guts to finally go over there and talk to him. Like, I'm gonna have to ask for money. I don't want to ask. He's gone. His motorhome's packed up, it's gone. I drove home freaking out. Oh my God. He said he was going to help me. I went ahead and did some things I shouldn't have because he said, now he's gone. I'm not a really good phone guy. I'm a face-to-face guy, so you could see my handshake means my word. Man, what am I going to do? The next day, I get a knock on my door. I go to the door, there's nobody there. Down on the ground, a FedEx envelope. A check for $3,500 said, don't miss the race. See you there, bro. What? Holy shit. What? He didn't have to do that. Holy crap. Another guy just propped me back up. And so many people, you know, like I said, Robin with the truck and trailer, he didn't put on the side of it Robin Samsel's truck and trailer. He didn't say anything. So without these guys along the way, none of this would have been possible. Nothing. And I forgot about that story because you get busy, you forget.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see him at the races every week anymore. To my daughter, he's Uncle Spencer. You know, he's at family reunions for 3 years. The past 5 years, he goes to my family reunion. I don't go to my family reunion. He's at my family reunion because he made such a good relationship with the rest of my family. He hangs out with them, you know. My Uncle Harry's his Uncle Harry, you know. It's so crazy. But without that guy, the dream, I mean, I couldn't call Bill Litton and say, Bill, I bought a brand new car and I spent all my money. How stupid is that? That wasn't a good business decision. But Spencer, he's like, get on down the road, bud. We've all been there. Like, holy crap, man. That's crazy. I said earlier, I hope I don't get any of those stories out, but that guy doesn't get enough credit for being the good egg that he is, you know? And he's a good guy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, don't worry, we're going to get these out. Yeah.
Yeah, I figure, you know, and the the cool thing about it is maybe after we get these out and then they get to see this, they'll realize I didn't forget. Maybe I didn't make a good enough impression of saying thanks, but there's a cast of 1,000 that made this possible. I mean, you yourself with the D3 TV, if you weren't throwing out good vibes for me, how let me come up and talk when you guys are, let me run my big mouth up there in the tower so my daughter thinks I'm coming out of the clouds. When she was little, she'd hear me announce and she's like, "Dad, I heard you coming out of the clouds."
Well, we enjoyed having you up there, and I hope at some point we can do more of that.
It's funny. I'd actually rather announce more than I'd rather race, because I think telling the story of the people getting to be up there, sometimes when I help announce at races, I'll go around in between rounds and just ask what happened or why, because man, it's just neat to hear. You never know what somebody went through to get up there. How bad it was, how many parts they had to change, if the hotel was crappy, if their car got broke into the night before. We went to Charlotte last year, and the hotel we stayed in, Mike McIntyre's team was there, and at their hotel room, their car got broken into. 2 of their crew guys' cars got broken into, I think, and stuff got stolen out of them. They were having a crappy time. They went to the races and ran their first 3-second run, I think. I don't even think they care their car got broken into. But what people don't understand, yeah, they're jumping up and down for a 3-second run, but they're also jumping up and down because everything they went through to get here. And you know what? It all means nothing. We just did what we, like, that was cool. So,
the people that are racing, they do understand, but the casual fan may not understand the journey that it takes to get there.
Oh man, we went to a race one time, and the best up for me is our first year, we were hoping to go to 10 races, rent out our car at 10 races. We could make ends meet. We went to 22, and we were in over our head, way in over our head. But people believed in us, and we believed in ourselves, so we just kept on going, and we just kept working at it. And Antron Brown and I used to share a shop together. And man, every time I was down, that guy would come in there and give some inspirational talk to me. "Big Daddy, get your head up." And it's like, if he thinks I can do it, I can do it. If next door was Manzo, if he thinks I can do, one of the biggest supporters, Morgan Lucas, his family, they helped out a lot, but him himself, he would say, "Come on, you're better than that. Come on, you could do better." You know what I mean? Or he'd call up and go, "Hey, how come you're struggling? Do you need help? Where are we at? One time we struggled so bad, we blew up a bunch of stuff. We thought we knew what we were doing. So he called and he said, "You're doing a bad job. You're going to lose some sponsors. You're going to lose your help. You need to bring your car to the shop, and we're going to take it apart and figure out what's wrong with it." And some people would probably say, "Forget that, man. I'm not letting you." Some people would say, "Sure, go ahead." I didn't really know what to do. I just went there. We unloaded it. We took it all apart. He drug parts out of his shop, out of his parts room. His Top Fuel team that was still there at the time, working on, he was just closing down his Top Fuel team. They were working in the fab shop. They helped. We went through the car with a fine-tooth comb. We went to Lucas Oil Raceway and unloaded that thing and set low ET of the points meet that weekend, or low ET of testing that day at the points meet. Qualified number 2, I think, at the points meet with Richie Crampton driving. It got rained out. We had to come back, and schedule conflicting or whatnot. But he didn't have to stick his deck out there. We put all new ignition on it. I was like, "Morgan, it's got new ignition on it. I just put new ignition on it. We'll figure it out. We'll make up a bill. We'll figure it out later. Let's just get this." He didn't have to do that. And when it was all said and done, there was no bill. There was nothing more than, "Hey, man, go out there and keep." I mean, what his family does for NHRA drag racing is beyond what they need to do. And then behind the scenes to do that for another race team, that I just, like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, man, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of friends, made a lot of memories. I got to go a lot of places. To go overseas and race, I mean, that if it wasn't for Bobby Lagana and John Stewart, Stewie, working out that deal with Erbacher to go over there, that was an experience all on its own. So the amount of people that you get to meet in drag racing and things, I'm sure every sport has it. Yeah, every sport needs somebody to tell the story.
This was as much the right opportunity at the right time as it was a passion for you, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Because ironically, the whole how it started as far as, oh, I'm going to have my own team. So I was working on that team from California that moved out here to Indiana, Brian Thiel's team. And basically funding was low. I got let go. I went to work at Tony Pedregon's team. I left working for Tony Pedregon, and I said to Jess, I said, babe, this is so tough. Tony was in and out of sponsors, trying to stay somewhere where they got funding. You never know if I'm gonna have a good job or not. I don't really know if this is the right thing. Maybe I get through this season and then in the winter find something different or whatever. Well, I was working on Dexter Tuttle's car at Vegas and Pomona, and Jess calls me up and she says, I hadn't been back to Indiana in a couple weeks. I was in California with my parents, and she called me up, and I was talking to my parents. I was leaving to go to the airport, and she was trying to talk, and I was like, can you just hold on a second? And can I call you back? And my dad's giving me crap. In the gist of it, she slipped out, I'm pregnant. What? Don't tell your parents, but call me when you get away from them. We got to talk. So I hang up the phone. I'm like, oh, what? So my dad, in my dad fine fashion, says, you know, son, I'm like, can you just give me a second, Dad? And he goes, you know, son, someday you're going to have kids, and you're going to want to spend a few minutes with them before they take off, and they're going to act like this, and you're going to regret it. And I was being a jerk at the time, and I turned around and I go, well, today might have been the day, Grandpa. And I turned around and walked out of the house, and I thought, oh no. My mom comes running out. What? What does that mean? Oh, nothing. Give me a hug. I got to go to the airport. By the time I got to the airport, I'd realized I'd lit a fire. And basically, oh man, I'd lit this fire. Now what am I going to do? And what am I going to say? So I go to Vegas and Pomona, and I'm thinking in Pomona, I'm going to go home and deal with this now. What am I going to do? And I went home, and she said, look, in 6 months, you're going to be a dad. You got about 6 months to figure this out, what you're going to do for a living. And I said, I got an idea. Let's go to New York or New Jersey and write down all this guy, inventories this guy's stuff. We're going to sell it. I'm going to start a race team. I'm going to start a race team. What do you think? You in? And she said, if you think you can make money in 6 months, I'm in. And we went to Topeka in June and raced. And we haven't looked back. And she might not have married me yet, or I might not have set the date yet, but that is my lifelong best friend, partner, ride or die. Nobody supports me like that. And I mean, who would support somebody? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? Like, who would do that? She was like, okay, I'm from California. I'll move to Indiana. I'll hang out here. We'll try this out. And we came back from Topeka. We were in Ron Griffith's truck and trailer. We had this box. It was a Swan's frozen food delivery truck. They'd taken the freezer box off and built a toter home box on it, basically. This thing wouldn't go 57 miles an hour wide open downhill. No air conditioning in the back. You had to roll the windows down to get... She's 8 months pregnant with her head through the sleeper hole. And me and George Taylor, my crew guy at the time, good friend, and we drove home from Topeka, and she said, I hope this is worth it. I told her, it'll get better, babe, I promise. And, you know, we put every dollar we could back into the race car. We stayed living in an apartment for a long time. We worked out of the trailer. We just did what it took to make it. We showed up with the circus and set up the tent like the rest of them, and we tried to compete. And we got 34, 36 people their license. Some of the coolest. I mean, we've had 2 Rookie of the Years, Bill Litton, Austin Prock, Jordan Vandergriff should have been a Rookie of the Year. You know what I mean? Richie Crampton, Rookie of the Year. He got his license. I mean, I've got to be, I told Jimmy Prock when we were driving up the return road after Austin got his license, I told Jimmy, I said, you know, someday I'm going to be sitting on my porch with my grandkids watching drag racing, and Austin Prock's going to be winning races and winning championships. And I'm going to be like, your grandpa got that guy his license. And the other day I was watching Jordan and Austin race each other in the final or in a semifinal or second round or something. And I thought to myself, man, this is living it. I might not have a lot of Wallies. We might not have won a lot of races, but some of the coolest things in the history of drag racing in my mind, I got to be around or be part of, or I have been really blessed to do this and really blessed with the people along the way.
The legacy of what you leave on the sport with all these new drivers. But do you ever sit back and really think about it that or do you just keep plowing forward?
I'm too young. I haven't won enough. There's no legacy right now. Hopefully someday there's a legacy. In my mind, also, it's probably not so much a legacy as much as my kid. There's so many people that are instrumental in making her who she is, and they have accepted her. I feel like my legacy is my kid and our kid, Jesse and I, but she's like the village kid, Antron Brown, she can run in his pit area anytime. Steve Torrance, Mama Kay, Bobby Lagana. I mean, we might as well call him Uncle Bobby. The things he does for her is crazy. Steve Libby from OMG, all these people, Erica Enders, Royce Freeman, Grandpa Royce, I feel like my biggest fear is that if I was to not be around, would she know, would somebody raise her right? You know what I mean? Like show her what I would try to show her. And I feel like all these people that step into her life all the time, they would. So to me, I think my biggest legacy or biggest look at things is I just want to leave something for her and make sure that she knows that this is an awesome sport, family, group. And if you keep yourself involved, you'll stay out of trouble. And you'll stay out of trouble. You stay out of trouble,
So if you looked back at your path and somebody about that age was thinking of doing the same thing that you already did, what would you tell them?
Work harder. Work harder. Because I thought I was working hard. And you just can't work hard enough. You can, but you got to look at it like this. If you work hard, whatever you want, you can have. You just got to work for it. And so if you work to just get to that point, like, oh man, you know what? I got this much homework done. I just got the homework done. Well, your goals are too easily attained, and therefore you're setting your goals too low. So even if you set your goal and you achieve it, you better get a higher goal. You know what I mean? So work harder. I guess that's what it comes from it, because man, there's so many times I sat back and was like, I think I'm making it. Then I go, oh yeah, you can't win a race, you big dummy. You're not making it yet. You got some work to do, But then I look at some other people that go, man, I can't believe you did this, or I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, wow, they think that's, okay, all right. Because sometimes I'm beating myself up thinking I need to do more. But if I could say anything to somebody, work harder. Work harder, because hard work will teach you so many things. And as you get older, the hard work that you put in, it'll be easier to keep the work ethic going. Because you got to lead by example. Some of my best races, the best teams I was on were when I was out there digging the trench with them, where I was the first guy holding the shovel. You know what I mean? Because you can't lead by standing in the trailer. You can't lead by riding off on the scooter. You can't. You have to be there. They have to believe in you, and in order for you to teach them. So if you're trying to get into this sport, work harder, stick around, try to do the best you can. Don't be afraid to ask questions. The biggest thing I can tell you though, I started as a bottom end guy, as a pan wiper, whatever, and I wanted to be the crew chief. And when I got to be the crew chief, I wanted to be the pan wiper. I wanted to go back because it was so much more fun then. You got to look at all that. You didn't have the stress or the pressure or any of that of like, oh man, what if this thing doesn't run good? They're all going to be counting on you, you know, because that one time, or, you know, those few times that you get when it runs good and they're all happy for you, there's going to be so many more times when it's down, and you better have a good smile on your face to help pick everybody up. So you work hard. Remember, it's not easy. If it was, everybody'd be out there. We've had so many drivers that it's hard not to, you know, it's hard to remember them all in a sense of like each individual story, but they all got some story, you know. I try to think of some because they're crazy.
So let me ask you about a couple of drivers. Tripp Tatum.
Tripp. Now Tripp, I met Tripp before I ever had Nitro University or a driving school. I met Tripp through Tommy Johnson. I was working for Bill Evans, and Tripp came and he was going to license, and Bill agreed to let him license. And somehow it kicked a rod out on the burnout or somewhere in the run, and we were just making a test run. He only went a couple hundred feet. It kicked a rod out, and that ended it. Well, it ended the day because it was a testing tune. We were only going to make a couple runs anyway, so he didn't get his license. Fast forward, that'd be 2008. So fast forward 2013, 14, somewhere in there. Tripp Tatum back on the scene of, hey, not that he went away, but just like, hey, I was thinking maybe I should finally get my license. You have a car, it's a decent car. Tommy Johnson said, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we went, we got his license, and he was able to go to some races with us. And then he stopped racing for a little bit, came back, we did some more racing, and Tripp was a big part. There was a lull. We lost a driver that was an overseas driver that had committed to us, and we were just at the point of break. You know, we talk about people that come in at the right time. We were just at the breaking point, and Tripp had some unfortunate things happen in his life, and he lost his mom, and he really wanted to go racing and take his mind off things because he had lost his father the previous time, right before he'd gotten racing. And so, you know, Tripp came back and we were able to do some racing together, and it allowed him to get his confidence to where he was ready to go drive a top fuel car, and he was able to get his license in the Lagana family car and do some racing over there. And, you know, it goes back to guys like Tripp, and, you know, without him stepping in, there was a point there where we could have hit rock bottom or could have crashed out, and Tripp came in and saved things. And without that, you know, it could have been a bad day.
Did Ashley Sanford license in your car?
No, Ashley licensed with her family in her own car, actually. But she came to drive for us a couple times because some things didn't work out for her, and we had, you know, logistic-wise to get her stuff back here to the Midwest. So she came and drove, and we went to Bowling Green, we went to Norwalk. I think we did a couple races. They later had me come help run their car a few times, but she was a good driver. I mean, she is a good driver. She was a natural driver. She could drive, she could pedal, she could grab the brake. She could do things that most people that didn't have a lot of experience, or they didn't have a lot of experience, heck, that had a lot of experience, couldn't do. So she did really good. I wish that her and I could have raced together some more. It's funny, every one of them, Alex Laughlin, he was probably one of the funnest people I raced with, because win, lose, or draw, that kid had a good attitude. You know, everybody likes to give him crap about, you know, being a rich kid or not having to. That kid worked on his rides. He got out and worked on the car. He'd set up the awning. He'd tear down. That was a good guy. When I didn't do a good job, he didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He knew I was upset that I didn't do a good job, but he wouldn't let me get down on my, hey man, we're learning together. Let's go. So.
Well, let me ask you about Shawn Langdon. So Shawn licensed with you.
He licensed in, I worked for Morgan Lucas, and he made a deal. Him and Shawn have been, grew up as childhood friends, and they had made a deal that he could get his license in the Family A fuel car. And we were at the Indy test session. I want to say Rob Windland and I worked on the car together. And for some reason, Rob either wasn't there or hadn't started with the team yet. But Morgan was supposed to come show Shawn what to do and run the car. And Morgan didn't show up. And Shawn was getting upset because he wanted to get his license and drive the car. And so finally we called Morgan and he's like, just tell him what to do, Anthony, go up there and run it. Okay, sounds good. And we told him what to do, and he went up there and got his license. And I think Morgan showed up like the second run or the third run. But it was funny because at the time, I didn't know that I would go work for Tom Conway later on. And I didn't know that Shawn Langdon would end up being out of a ride, or not have a ride, because this was before he had a top fuel ride at all. He was just racing Super Comp. And Tom Conway had two cars at the time, and Kate Harker was driving one. And Tom said, you know somebody who could drive my other car? And I said, man, you know what? Let's call Shawn Langdon. I bet he'd be down. At the time, he was dating Courtney Enders. And Courtney Enders, Shawn Langdon, myself, and my cousin Mark, who now works on John Force's car, we went to Houston regional event and Belle Rose regional event with Shawn driving, and we had a blast. Courtney mixed fuel and packed chutes, and me and Shawn and Mark worked on the car, and Tom gave us a good tune-up. And I think at Belle Rose, Shane Conway came and ran the car, and we had a good time. It probably wasn't the best of races for Shawn. It ended up doing a wheel stand at Belle Rose, and when it slammed down, somehow it broke a motor mount, and the motor came out and came sideways in the car and broke the rear end, and it took 2 hours to get it back on the return road. But it was pretty funny. It was all a comical joke at the end because we ended up fixing it. A guy that used to work on Joe Amato's team, they call him WAP, he came and fixed the front wing with some aluminum from Lowe's, and we made back up there for first round. So, you know, later on, seeing Shawn go on to win a world championship in top fuel and stuff, and to know that, man, I might, like I said, all along, I may not have won a lot of races. I probably don't have any world championships to show for it. I was part of Aaron Oliveira's regional championship in 2006. But man, the people and that I've worked with or been blessed to be around or race with, they outweigh the championships. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, because championships are awesome. I'm sure they are. Man, these memories are better. To watch Rich McPhillips Sr. to watch his son for the first time get to make a lap, to watch him watch his son. He didn't even know where to stand outside the car. It's crazy. It was the craziest. He didn't know what to do. You know, some of these things that you see, Jimmy Prock, he didn't know what to do either. He was so excited to see his kid race, and he went racing with us one time. We went to Bowling Green, Kentucky. And you want to talk about confidence? That guy blows confidence out of the water. He's like the Chuck Norris of confidence. Let me tell you, it's 135 degrees on the racetrack, and I'm like, I'm going to be so embarrassed here in a minute because I really don't know what to do. Like, how do you justify backing it down? Where to? So we go down this racetrack, and he walks up and he goes, what are you going to do? And I said, back it down. He goes, pff, stand on it. Air the tire up and stand on it. Let's go. And we go out and set low ET of the round. First car down the track, rookie driver. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, you guys could take all the trophies you want. I remember riding back down the return road with Jimmy Prock saying, you got a pair of dirty gloves, we got to get this thing apart. And that dude yarded a head off that thing. I yarded the other. Oh, it was the most, that was my successful day. That was, oh man. I still talk about that day. That wasn't a win. That was nothing. That was just working with some buddies. That was the coolest. It was, his sons were up front working on the car. There was a guy at the rope. Jimmy Prock, you in there working on that thing. And he looked up. This is what I started doing. You think I was born a crew chief? It was just so awesome. Austin got his license. This is funny. The car does a burnout, backs up, stages, takes off, makes a good run. This guy walks up next to me with his cane. He says, why does that thing sound like shit? I'm looking around at John Force and Jimmy Prock, and I'm like, it just went 540 something, and the heat of the day on getting this kid his license, and he shut it off early. Why does he think it sounds? This is so weird. And I didn't recognize him because he had a hat on and he was kind of just off to the side. It was Tom Prock, and he didn't realize it didn't have a blower on it. And Jimmy said, "Dad, it doesn't have a blower on it." And I just started laughing. I was like, man, that was his grandson just got his license. He's yelling at me. My car is a piece of crap. Jimmy Prock's defended me. John Force is looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm thinking I'm living the dream. You know what I mean? To me, I'm like, I'm around all the coolest sons of guns in the world right now. Who could turn that into a good moment? You know what I mean?
Of your students, who probably taught you the most, or who taught you things?
That's a good question. That is a very good question. I would say of everybody that taught, of all the drivers, the person that taught me the most was Bill Litton, because Bill Litton was completely green when he came to drive the car. He could fly an airplane. He had drove an alcohol funny car. He was a financial genius as far as numbers and math and stuff, and he had never drove anything like an A fuel car. And you just can't describe how an A fuel car, how a nitro burning race car sounds, acts, or anything. And he taught me, because I lost my patience a lot. I lost my cool with him a lot, probably more than a guy's paying you to drive your race car and you're losing your patience on him. But he taught me that, hey, there's more to life than winning. There's more to life. There's more to life than this moment. And you got to stop and breathe for a minute and look around and realize that there's more people watching you, and they're not watching you to see if you win. They're watching just to see what kind of person you are. They're watching to see how you handle yourself. And man, in those beginning, and there was a lot of times I just lost it. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, that was me. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. But my daughter, she levels me out some. The crew guys like having her around because I don't get so angry. But Bill taught me so much that I didn't understand until after I didn't have him as a driver anymore. It's kind of like a grandpa thing or whatever, you know. I just learned so much after the fact that I didn't realize that, you know, people aren't, it's not always, not everybody's there to win the race every single lap. Not everybody's there to be the fastest one. There's so many more angles of why they're there and what they're there to get out of it. And that's a huge lesson to learn, you know. That's a huge lesson to learn.
Who was probably the most natural to climb in the car and really be the most comfortable right out of the box?
Okay, so there's two. Richie Crampton, Austin Prock. Richie Crampton made zero driving flaws and went straight from driving my car to driving Morgan Lucas's top fuel car. Okay, now he drove pro mod stuff in Australia and whatnot, but zero flaws, hands down. I'm going to have to say it was Richie Crampton. Now Austin Prock, his only flaw came when we were actually, came when we were racing, and I think he double stepped it at Bowling Green, and I laughed. His dad was mad. It was funny. He was mad, but now one person that I got a really good story to tell you, I just thought of, that you would get a kick out of. Jordan Vandergriff. Zero experience. I had no idea, zero experience. He's Vandergriff, right? They're in hot rodding, Headman headers, Transdapt, right? His uncle's had a top fuel team, right? The kid's been around racing his whole life. Fast forward to Vegas regional race in the fall of 2017. He's going to get his license. He had gone to Frank Hawley School with Austin Prock to get his Super Comp license. They both got it. So I'm thinking this kid's driven hot rods, whatever, junior dragsters, whatever, right? So we get there to the track, we warm the car up, we put it on the ground, we're getting ready to roll out, and his dad walks up to me and he says, "Hey, have you talked to my kid?" "Of course I've talked to your kid. I've been talking to him for 2 days." What do you mean? He's like, "Well, he's told you, right?" I'm thinking, what? He's blind out of one eye? What told me what, right? He's like, he's never driven anything before. What do you mean never driven anything before? Now, in the meantime, while he's telling me this, here comes Jordan out of the lounge dressed in Alex Laughlin's fire suit, because his super comp suit's not legal. All dressed, ready to go. And he's just standing next to the race car, and me and his dad are standing at the back of the trailer talking, and he says, he's never driven anything before. I go, I'm not understanding. I mean, like he's never driven a dragster? He drove a super comp car. He goes, no, like he's never driven any hot rods before. What do you mean? I go, he's had like a dirt bike rode around or a go-kart. No. I go, what? Okay. Now we'd already done paid the track rental fee. We done warmed up. We've been here all day. It's go time. Let me go talk to the kid. So I walk over to Jordan. I go, "Hey, bud." He's like, "Hey." I go, "You ready?" He's like, "Yeah." I go, "You nervous?" No, not at all. I go, "Okay, so we're gonna strap you in, and when we get up there, and we'll go, okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm trying to think in my head, how am I gonna talk to him about this? So I says to him, "Hey, man, so you ever done a burnout like in your dad's car or your grandpa's hot rod or something?" "No." "Okay. You ever gotten a go-kart and done donuts?" "No." I says, "You ever been to Scandia and been racing around with the go-karts? You know how when it gets into the "No, I never rode go-karts at the miniature golf course." "Okay." I go, "You never raced nothing?" He's like, "No, I played a lot of Gran Turismo." What the straight face, I go, "Okay, cool. So we're gonna strap you in the car and we're gonna drive down the return road here at Las Vegas through the pit area towards the bull ring, right? So we're gonna tow down this road. It's pretty open pit area right now. I'm gonna go about 45 miles an hour. When I get down there about 2/3 of the way, you're gonna see my arm go out the window and I'm gonna point like this. When I do, I'm gonna turn the car like you would be coming off the top end doing 45, 50 miles an hour. And I want you to keep the rope tight. If the rope drops, we're coming back to the trailer. If you keep the rope tight, we're going straight to the starting line and we'll roll you right in the water box." Okay? He's like, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, can I sit up?" And I go, No. Strapped in, because when you come off down there at the top end, you can't see. You might be going 30 or 40 miles an hour. I want you to see what's going on. I said, worst case, if when I start turning, you don't think you can do it, just pull on the brakes real hard. It'll break the toe strap and you'll just keep going straight. Okay. So his dad hops in the car. We drive off down there. And I'm driving down there and his dad's like, "What'd you say?" And I'm telling his dad. Right about the time I tell his dad, he told me he's played a lot of Gran Turismo. I stick my hand out the window and crank the wheel. He never let the toe strap drop, nothing. Went like flawless. I guess we'll go to the starting line. We go to the starting line, we get all ready. His dad's like, "You got one of them boxes to shut him off, right?" I says, "Yeah." He's like, "You should have it." I'm like, "Come on, man, you're making me nervous now. Your kid should be able to do this. He's a Vandergrift. They got it in their blood." That's the Italian in me coming out, right? They got it in their blood. He could do this, right? So we get him all strapped in. John Lombardo's up there watching, a couple other people, or Shane Westerfield. We get him all started up, and I give his dad the box. I said, "Once I get it started and get everything moved, you hand me back the box. And that way I could shut him off if we need to." So we get him all running. He goes up, does the burnout, and he's backing up. And his dad comes walking up next to me. I put my hand out for the box, and his dad goes, slaps my hand. I go, "Box." "Oh, no." I go, "What?" And he goes, "I set it down in the car." That's the tow vehicle's driving off. I go, "Well, I guess we're not shutting him off now, are we?" His dad's like, "Oh, man." So he makes the run. He does okay. So the next run, we get ready to go up there. And I'll leave out the part where the track personnel pulled him sideways into the guardrail and broke the front wing, and we had to spend a few hours fixing it. I'll leave that part out. But we go there for the second run and we get ready to go up and his dad goes, hey, I think I'm gonna go wait in the grandstands this time. That way I don't have to worry about that box. His dad didn't go with me, but Jordan did great, turned out to be a great, great driver. And to think the kid drove nothing. He made 6 runs at Frank Hawley's school in a super comp car, made 3 runs to cross his license over in an A fuel car. And after about 6, 7 races, he went top fuel racing. If that isn't impressive, if that isn't a feather in the Nitro University cap, I don't know what is.
So if you had to define the term success in what you do, what would that be?
So success would be Krista, Colette, Austin Prock, Jordan Vandergriff, Richie Crampton, Bill Litton, every one of them. Because they could go, you know, somebody had to teach somebody how to do it. They could go on and win, and that's great. I'm freaking happy for them. But I remember when they didn't, you know, that it was awesome that they let me teach them. You know what I mean? It was awesome that they let me be part of that. You could win 100 races, you're going to remember your first. I was a lot of people's first. And that's probably the coolest part for me. I was a lot of people's first. I promise you this little girl here is going to win a bunch of races. This little girl is going to win a bunch of races too. Okay, they're going to win some races. They probably won't win their races with me. But they started here. And I know what they had to put in it to get there. I could take that to the bank. Definitely.